Listen, I will speak slow, because the truth lives better when it creeps in soft. The kettle hisses like a throat clearing. The sun writes a thin line across my table. I am 76 years old. My name is Evelyn Hart. I have folding chairs in my garage and a recipe for cornbread, smudged at the edge of a handwritten card. I can still hem a skirt by lamplight and wake before dawn, because the habit of rising never left me. I thought I had time. I thought time would treat me like someone who had earned rest. I was wrong. Time is impatient with the careful. It began the way ordinary betrayals do, in a place everyone trusts, behind glass. I walked into the bank that Tuesday, like I always did. A list folded in my pocket, the arthritis cream jar tucked in my bag, a 20 for my Sunday offering, 100 for the fridge. The teller smiled like she'd always seen me. Her voice had the cautious kindness of someone who'd been trained in small griefs. My card slid across her palm. Her fingers were warm. She looked at the screen and the warm turned hard in a single blink. "Ms. Hart," she said, "would you come with me to the manager's office?" Managers have offices with ferns and chairs that squeak, and the wrong kind of light. Elise, young, polished, hair like business sheets, closed the door behind me and slid a printed statement onto the desk, like it hurt her to do it. Numbers crowded the page. My available balance stared back at me like an accusation. $3,812. That was a lot to me. My savings are not a rumor. They are the product of mopping floors before sunrise, of serving trays to children who didn't say thank you loud enough, of skipping one vacation after another because the rent must be paid. She told me slowly, "There have been transfers." She said, "They go to an account under JR Holdings." Her words were measured, like someone reading a list of names in a church pew. I blinked. My fingers hovered over the paper. There were amounts: 5,000, 12, 18. A pattern that felt like a map someone else had drawn through my life. "I don't understand," I said, though I understood perfectly. I had raised a boy on beans and a paper schedule. I recognized the handwriting of hunger. I dialed his number. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Mamie," he said, and listened when I told him. He laughed in a voice made for sliding over hard things. "Oh, that's probably just the new holding account," he said. "I set it up for us. You're safer that way. I'm managing it, Mom. You trust me, remember?" His words tried to fold the daylight shut. "I never gave you permission," I said. "I never signed for any of this." He said I had. He said I had signed. He said he was doing me a favor. His name is Marcus. He is my only child. He was a boy with a forehead like a promise, and a mouth that learned to charm before it learned to listen. He wore suits for church and a different voice around grown people. He married a woman who carried light in her hair and a ledger in her purse. Lately, they had a house that smelled like candle stores. They had a car that sat too clean in our old neighborhood. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to taste the lie like sugar and believe it would help. I called my nephew Tommy instead. Tommy is a quiet man who builds computers for a living and believes in things that beep. He came the next day with a laptop and a paper bag of blueberry muffins because he knows my thumb likes the soft middle. He sat down, breathed in, and did what boys with keys do best. He looked. He moved his fingers over my accounts like a careful surgeon. He found an email. He found a scanned power of attorney. My name, my signature, the date. After the one I had revoked with my own hand, my signature looked almost like mine if you squinted at it while you were tired. The loop of the D was wrong. The curl of the R was like someone imitating my script with a wooden hand. I remember the way the kitchen light felt like a stage light then. Too bright and honest. My stomach folded. I thought of every skipped dentist appointment, I thought of the graduation cap I pawned a watch to buy. I thought of the winters I wrapped my ribs in second-hand coats to keep Marcus's shoulders warm. I felt old and foolish and small as a button. Tommy's jaw, set the way a hinge does when it knows what weight it must hold. "This is forgery," he said. "He made a POA. He made a company. He moved the money." He rattled off words that sounded technical and cruel. Wire transfers, misappropriation, elder financial abuse. I clutched at the back of my chair because the room was tilting. The truth is, its own gravity. It pulls things out of you and lays them on the table. That night, I boiled water and watched steam draw little letters on the window. I whispered, "Not again," into the glass and meant it. I meant all of it. Sunday dinner felt like a trap I set for myself with a silver ladle. I cooked what I always cook when I want a house to feel like a haven. Roast chicken with rosemary, candied yams, collard greens with a little extra vinegar to wake them up. I set the table with my good napkins. Marcus arrived with his wife, Lila. Picture perfect, smile polished enough to double as a mirror. They talked about a new development he was bidding on. He used the word portfolio, like someone wearing a showy ring. He reached for the gravy boat, and his hand trembled only a little. I let it pass. When the plates were cleared and the tea set had cooled, I asked him. I kept my voice gentle, because softness is a tool you can wield better than anger sometimes. "Marcus," I said, "who signed for those transfers?" He blinked at the question, like a man startled by his own reflection. He told the same story he told the bank teller. "I signed." He said it was paperwork I had already agreed to. He said I had been overwhelmed and had asked him for help. When I told him the signature looked wrong, he said, "You can't remember everything, Mom. Time does that. That's why you asked me to handle things." The room tilted again. Lila squeezed his hand. Her smile thinned. Tommy, who had come that evening to bring a casserole and stayed to see me through, put his fork down. He spoke with a calm that belonged to people who have a spine and use it. "She didn't sign that," he said. I checked. "It's forged." Marcus turned to him with animal swiftness. "Mind your place," he snapped. "You don't know what you're talking about." The words cut. They always do when they are ours. When Marcus left that night, he slammed the car door like he wanted to shut himself away from the mirror. Lila followed like a shadow that had practiced its steps. I sat at the table with the quiet that comes after someone close to you leaves and takes the sun with them. I did not cry in the moment. I had used up tears on small mercies a long time ago. I called a lawyer instead. Her name is Renee Parker, and she does not waste breath. She wears her hair short and her sentences shorter. She came the next afternoon, briefcase in hand, and the kind of eyes that read paper like it was a soul. She listened. I told her about the bank teller's face, about the emails, the POA, the way a son had become a stranger, who understood ledgers better than he understood me. Renee folded her hands, looked down the barrel of each transaction, and said with a neat, sharp voice, "This is criminal. We can make them return it. We can make the courts do what the kids at Sunday school say adults should do." Her words felt like tools I could hold. We filed a police report. We prepared the affidavit. Renee moved like someone clearing a path. She subpoenaed bank records, traced IP addresses, and watched the data bend like reed grass under her direction. It took time. Time is patient when the law is engaged. It holds its breath and counts. Meanwhile, Marcus's confidence did not tremble. He continued to post pictures of brunch, to talk about bids for properties in neighborhoods where my name had never been needed. Lila liked those pictures. I wanted to tell her where I had fixed his first bicycle with baling wire and prayer. The day the sheriff came with a formality that smelled like lemon. Marcus stood at my door. His face was hard and a little younger than the man I had birthed. He told me I had embarrassed him. He said I had ruined his reputation. He told me impossible things, that I had no right to press charges on my own son, that I was an old woman meddling in affairs I did not understand. He left without apology, and the door closed on a sound that echoed in me like a dropped plate in an empty house. I had wanted not to hurt him. I had wanted to protect what little dignity remained in our family name. But dignity does not pay the light bill. Dignity does not buy groceries or the new medicine when your doctor says, "This is the only thing that works." I wanted my name back from the ledger where someone else had written it in a false hand. I wanted to get up in the morning and feel the comfort of knowing that the jar in the bedroom still held the coins I had tucked away for candlelight. The courthouse is a building full of small noises. The polite shuffling of paper. The soft coughs of people who are trying very hard to contain huge things. My nephew sat beside me on the bench. Rene's files were like a small drumline of evidence. Marcus walked in with his lawyer, looking like a man going to collect a debt, not realizing he was the one who owed one. The judge read names like a conductor setting a tempo. My voice in that room was the old strength I had used to call children to supper. Clear, practical, no nonsense. Tommy spoke first. He presented emails, printed headers, bank prompts. He traced an IP address back to Marcus's home office. And to the afternoon, Marcus said he was looking after Mom's accounts. The forgeries were laid out like confessions. Rene stood up and did what she does best. She made the law articulate in the language of right and wrong. She did not use rage. She used fact. She used the kind of calm that slices paper. She showed the revoked POA we once executed, the forged one that came later, and the sliding trail of transfers. The judge's face collected the evidence, like rainwater in a basin. I sat in the gallery and felt my chest loosen with each truth placed on the table. When they called my name to speak, I rose. I looked at my son. He did not look at me. That was not the same boy who hid frogs in his pocket and brought home a bee with a crack in its wing. He wore his armor and had no map of shame. I told the court what I had always told Marcus when he was small, that work is a kind of prayer, and saving is a hymn you sing to the future. I told them about the nights I scrubbed till my hands were raw, about the time I pawned a bracelet to buy him a school uniform, about the way I kept the jars of spare change because a small thing piled becomes a respectable thing. My voice trembled only once. I did not beg. I told the truth. That is all I had, and that is more than enough when it is right. The judge looked at Marcus and at the papers, and then at me, and then he spoke with a gravity that felt like the first honest thunder of a storm. He considered it, the theft, the betrayal. He considered the way a parent is supposed to be honored, not emptied. He did what a judge must do. He ordered restitution. He ordered consequences. Marcus's face had an animal flicker of panic at that moment, like a man who had always expected someone else to rewrite the world when his own mistakes got heavy. He was sentenced to pay back what he had taken. He was forbidden to hold fiduciary power over elderly people again. I did not demand prison. I wanted my life back. I wanted my name to be mine again. After the ruling, there was a quiet I could live in that tasted close to relief. The first restitution check was a small thing, not the whole, but enough to buy back the porch step that had been loose for years and that Marcus had promised to fix when the next deal closed. When the carpenter hammered the new board into place, I walked up and down the steps like a woman trying on a new walking rhythm. The wood held my weight without complaint. The porch sighed like an old friend. This is not the end of it, because endings are human inventions. Life keeps going. Food must be made. The roses on my fence must be pruned. I kept living. I learned to sit with the complexity of a son who had hurt me, and the recognition that I too had been loud in my omissions. He had lied. He had stolen. But he had been my child first, and that fact lived inside me, even when the law had to do its work. People ask me if I forgave him. Forgiveness is not a single instrument. It is a garden. It takes seasons. I planted small things. I asked no grand signs of redemption. Words sometimes do not make room for the slow architecture of repair. He sent me a letter in jail one summer, thin as the shoe leather of regret. It did not say sorry at first. It said he was cold and had learned measurement for the first time. How long silence is when you listen to it alone. Later, he wrote smaller notes, drawings of a porch with steady steps, sketches of the way to fix a hinge, lists of jobs he intended to take when he was free. I kept them because they were weather. Weather changes. Tommy, steadfast and stubborn as the acacia in the front yard, kept visiting. He brought warm casseroles and stayed when I wanted him to stay. Rene stopped in from time to time with updates, and the dry humor of someone who knows the law is a ladder that must be climbed carefully. Lila, Marcus's wife, eventually came one afternoon without a pretense. She had left him by then. She stood on my porch, like someone who had lost the script she used to read from, and now had only honest words left. She told me she hadn't seen what was happening in the way she now could see it in the rear view. She cried like a woman who had been learning too late. What I kept for myself was not vengeance. I kept the right to a life that still had shoes to wear. I kept the habit of making cornbread and humming while I fold napkins. I kept the small pleasures that no ledger could account for. The first swallow of coffee in the morning. The way rain makes the streets smell like new paper. I kept my name on my mailbox and in the deeds that mattered. There are things you can reclaim by asking, and other things you reclaim by showing up and being the author of your own days. Do I tell this story to make anyone admire me? No. I tell it so someone else hears the warning when the bank teller's eyes change. When your child says, "Trust me," do not blur your own sense of numbers. Ask for the papers. Read them with a light. Do not let kindness become a door you leave ajar. This is the truth I learned with my teeth clenched and my sleeves rolled. There were quiet, ordinary victories along the way. I fixed the front step. Yes, I paid a few bills I had let go, because anger and bureaucracy both take time. I bought a new jar for my coins that does not rattle in a way that makes me flinch. I planted a row of snapdragons along the fence to keep the porch from looking empty. I met other women at the community center who had justice work to do, and we traded recipes and lawyers' phone numbers like you trade seeds at the farmer's market. We learned to look at our children not only with the tenderness of memory, but with the armor of caution, not because love should be suspicious, but because love is wise when it is older. Sometimes, when I fold laundry now, my hands trace the wrinkle of my life like a seam that has been mended skillfully. I think of the boy who ate under this roof before he had shirts to iron. I think of the afternoon he asked me, with the face of a man who still had soft parts, to trust him with my finances because he had business sense. I think of the choice I made to invent a courtroom when I needed one. I think of the judge's voice and the way the gavel sounded like a small, sharp bell. I will not lie. There are nights when grief creeps in like fog and lays its hand soft across the bed. The words he used, that I was halfway in the grave, are a bruised place in me. But there are also mornings when the light comes through the kitchen window and paints the sugar jar with gold. Those mornings belong to me. I take them like blessings without needing to bargain for them. If you are listening somewhere in a room that feels too large or too small tonight, hear this. Your life is not always someone else's ledger. Your name, written in the quiet of the kitchen light, matters. Learn to say it in a way that has no apology attached. Keep your lists, Keep your receipts. Keep a friend who knows how to look at a screen and find truth in blue lines. If the worst comes, if the hand that once held yours learns how to take without asking, you have right on your side if you step up and use it. I learned to move forward with the slow dignity of someone who has mended a torn dress and knows how to make the seam invisible from the front. I walked through the days with the small rituals of survival, watering the plant that never forgets to sprout in spring, tucking the last piece of pie into a neighbor's hands, calling Tommy on lazy Wednesday afternoons to talk about nothing and everything. I kept the photographs that showed a boy with milk on his chin and dirt under his nails. I kept them because I do not want my memory to be a weapon. I want it to be a lens. I will not ask you to applaud me. I will not ask you to judge my son as harshly as the court did. People fall, sometimes into traps of greed and imitation, sometimes into the forgiveness of other people's expectations. What I want to leave you with is the small practical map I wish someone had given me when I needed it most. Hold your pen, read your paper, keep your receipts, call someone who knows computers when the bank says there's trouble, and do not let the word family be used as a substitute for consent. When the light in the yard bends like a hand across the grass and the day softens, I sit on my porch with a cup of tea. The roses are pruned, the porch steps are steady. I watch little children learn to skip stones, and the old men in their cars read the paper until their eyes close. I breathe. My name sits on the mailbox like a promise. Some afternoons, I look up the street and see Marcus walking. Hair shorter, shoulders narrower, hands empty. And I do not watch him with hunger or hate. I watch him as you watch the weather change, noting the shift, but knowing you can't control it. There is a shadow that sometimes moves across my kitchen that looks like the shape of what almost happened to me. I turned toward it and placed my hands flat on the table. You will not be allowed to write my ending, I said to no one and everyone. The house listened. The sugar shook in its jar. The tea cooled and then warmed again. If you remember only one thing from this string of sentences, let it be this. You are not small because someone else decides to take. You are measured by the way you stand back up, the grace of how you pick up your papers, and the kindness you teach your own hands to remember. Keep your pen, keep your receipts, keep a friend with a laptop and a backbone. And if the time comes that a person you love betrays you, name it. Then use whatever law and love you can to take your life back. My name is Evelyn Hart. I swept my porch this morning. The broom makes a low, honest noise. I have a jar in the bedroom that still holds coins for days when the power is finicky. I have lunch plans on Thursday with women who teach me strength and recipes. I have a son who once took my money and learned a lesson in the cold. I have the shape of my days and the right to spend them as I please. This, finally, is the most American kind of prayer I ever uttered. A life returned to me, one small accounting at a time. I set my teacup down, and I am content enough to whisper, "It will do."